If a known and proven prophet came to you and offered to do any one miracle you wanted, what would you ask for? Healing? A spectacular vision of heaven? Some impossible thing like the sun dancing across the sky? We know that God can and has done miracles like that, so what would you ask for? And when it's hypothetical, I bet most of us could come up with something we'd like. In reality, however, many of us, perhaps most of us, wouldn't ask for anything. Why do I say that? Because we're all stubborn. Because if God were to offer us that kind of opportunity, it comes with a call to conversion. People don't like to convert. We tend to not like change. We have an example of this in the first reading. The prophet Isaiah, well-known and proven prophet, is sent to King Ahaz of Judah by God to tell him to ask for a sign, a miracle. Isaiah even says, "Let it be as deep as the netherworld or as high as the sky." Meaning it can be as grand as he wants. And what does Ahaz say? "I will not ask. I will not tempt the Lord." He pretends it's because he doesn't want to tempt the Lord. He pretends that it's piety and humility and that he's content with what he has. But of course, the truth is basically the opposite. The reason Ahaz gets this special offer from a prophet is because God has asked him to do something incredibly difficult. So God offers him this sign to help him trust in the difficulty. Ahaz's city, Judah, Jerusalem, is under attack. And he's afraid he's going to be conquered and kicked off his throne. He wants to protect his power. But this is the same God who split the Red Sea and on several occasions throughout Israel's history miraculously defeated massive armies. God can definitely win this battle if Ahaz trusts him. But Ahaz has his own plan. For almost 200 years at this point, the kings of Judah have gotten in the habit of solving their problems through politics and alliances. Ahaz would rather trust his own ideas and stick to what he's used to than to consider the possibility that there's a better way, a different way. So when Isaiah offers him a blank check, permission to ask for any miraculous sign he could imagine, he refuses because he doesn't want to have to admit that his plan isn't what God's asking. And Isaiah responds, "O house of David, is it not enough for you to weary people? Must you also weary my God?" But Isaiah promises him a sign anyway. "The virgin shall be with child and bear a son, and shall name him Emmanuel," which means God is with us. But because Ahaz goes ahead with his political solution, because he clings to his plan instead of listening to the prophet, the messenger that God sent him, this sign is no longer for his own safety. God protects Jerusalem, but the alliance formed by Ahaz causes all the rest of Israel to be conquered. And it costs Ahaz a lot of his power. He becomes a subject, a vassal to another empire. It even costs him money. And he missed out on the chance to get a really cool miracle. But of course, God uses even our mistakes. The sign promised by Isaiah has two layers. The first layer is Ahaz's son turns out to be a pretty great king who helps the people to recognize God's presence. The second layer is what we see in the gospel. Mary, a young woman married to Joseph of the house of David, is told she will have a son whose kingdom will never end. Unlike Ahaz, who refuses to trust, refuses to obey, Mary does. Let it be done. Mary was not planning on having children, which is why, even though she was legally married to Joseph, she was surprised when she was told she was going to have a child. Normally, you tell a newly married woman or an engaged woman you're going to have a son, she would assume you mean her husband's going to get her pregnant. But Mary's answer shows us it was not her plan. She had planned to remain a virgin dedicated to the Lord with Joseph as her legal protector. She never intended to have children from Joseph or anyone. But when God's messenger tells her that God has other plans, she does better than Ahaz. Unlike the false piety of Ahaz, "I will not ask." Mary says, "May it be done." Both Ahaz and Mary suffer. Both of them lose something after their encounter with God's messenger and God's command. But because Ahaz clings to his own way, he loses and gains nothing. Because Mary cooperates with God's plan, she transforms her loss into sacrifice and offering. Both Ahaz and Mary suffer. It's unavoidable in life, but Ahaz suffers reluctantly, clinging to what he wants and still losing it. Mary surrenders her will, endures her suffering with peace, and gets something even better than what she wanted. That takes the best part of her original desire, elevates it, adds to it, transforms it. We remember the story of Abraham, who was told to sacrifice his own son that he wanted. But because Abraham is willing to obey and offer up his son, he actually gets to keep his son and gain a whole new covenant. So it is that when Mary willingly accepts God's command to sacrifice her plan to remain a virgin, she actually gets to remain a virgin, dedicated to the Lord, but now she also gets to be a mother to Jesus and to all of humanity. God gave her what she wanted and more, because she was willing to sacrifice her own idea of satisfying those desires. And thank God she did. Ahaz's refusal destroyed a country. Mary's yes saved the world. We may not have whole nations affected by our yes or no, but it will affect others. And when God comes to us and makes demands of us, if we say yes, it will be good for those around us. If we say no, we will simply draw others into our suffering and still suffer. So when you are faced with God asking you to let go of something you want, give it to him. And you will receive it back, transformed and better, and you will spare those you love while you're at it.